Hey guys, and welcome to the Garage Athlete Show with myself and Daniel Fraser. We'll be getting joined by Aled very soon. We're just trying to sort out some technical issues. As some of you may have noticed, technology is not mine and Dan's friend at all times. How are you, Dan? Obviously, we missed a week last week. We just had a bit of a nightmare with trying to line up everybody's schedules, and that week after the Easter holiday was a bit hectic, isn't it? How are you anyways, buddy?
I'm all right, mate. I think 1 week off of not doing a podcast isn't the end of the world. You're too hard on yourself. Don does a crazy amount of work behind the scenes on the podcast. I just show up and talk. So give yourself a break, man. It's not a problem. But yeah, it's been all right. Kind of the weather up here is insane. Like I think we just talked about it. The hail, the rain, the cold. I was like, mate, May was always a time like the rugby season had finished. And it was literally the end of the season, and you spent the whole month getting wasted because you didn't. It was like the very end. It was all over. It was you got like 4 week breaks. You just went crazy, and I just remember being drunk in the sun all the time. Whereas now, it's raining, it's crap. I've got to put 3 kids to bed, and life's full on. So it's a little bit different. Yeah, it's
the difference between your 30s and your 20s.
Yeah, I found May's a weird month as well. It's kind of like the people that have been putting the graft in for summer are kind of on their way already in terms of if you want to just look good naked on the beach or whatever, but then don't go naked on the beach unless you're allowed. Then I find people are starting to panic as well towards getting towards that June months. Yeah, so there's a few people like crash diets and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, we always put the content out like I start putting that sort of message out in February. Like if you want to have a really good physique for the beach, like you need to start in you need to be starting to think like January, February time, not May, June, when you go on holiday, July. So you've given me 4 weeks to drop a stone. Okay, this isn't going to be fun for anybody that's involved. It can be done, but you're going to hate me for those 4 weeks. And I'm not going to do it unless you sign up for the 6 months after that so I can fix all the damage I'm about to do to your body.
Yeah, very much. So you can get, it's I think that it's like when we see the transformations, like, there's been transformations. Moderator James Edwards, he's just had a freaking amazing transformation. He's lost 13 kilos. I think he's lost more than that, like 17 kilos, a lot of weight. He's lost a huge amount of weight, but he's been doing this for months, But what I was trying to get to was he already had built an impressive amount of muscles through powerlifting, but he's just sort of cut down. And the guys that look the best are the ones that have the muscle mass to start with. But, to build that muscle and get that transformation, we're talking years and years and years in the making to get that. But he's just sort of spent years building his base, training hard, and now he's ripped it all off, and he's ready for the cover of Men's Health.
Yeah. And he said it's now the phase of trying to get bigger and stronger without getting fat, and that is always the tricky part.
Yeah, I mean, especially in powerlifting, like leverages help. Like when I went from 105 to 120, I think I added something like 50, 60 kilos on my squat, and my bench went up by 20k, deadlift up by 50. So you can actually, my deadlift went up by 70. I think 70 to 80 kilos. So it's kind of like, in terms of leverages, just getting fucking big does work. There's a reason people do it. But, it's, you have to, there is, are you happy with what you see in the mirror? I guess that's another point. I mean, at the stage now I'm at where I can't lift heavy. My back just is not letting me. I can still bench. And it's just like, is it worth being this big chunky guy when I haven't got the strength to back it up? Not really. So you'll see me doing a lot more cardio,
metabolic conditioning.
A little bit of conditioning, but mate, I walk the twins so much that I don't think I could fit conditioning in because I'm literally walking for an hour to 2 hours every single day, probably two, twice a day. I'm just like, my hips are knackered because I just walk so much, just because I'm pushing the pram all the time, just to get these little fuckers to sleep. I have my kids nearly.
My missus just walked in at that bit. I was making a lightly thingied reference to become a CrossFit athlete, but
no, I'd be a CrossFit athlete. But, so making a segue neatly into our guest today. So we've got Aled Zachary today, who is a coach over at DNA Health and Fitness. So the reason I wanted to get Aled on is he bought some coffee off me years ago, which I really appreciate, and we'll chat some coffee there. He's into his beers. He is a kind of a no nonsense but very well educated, and I would say a true evidence based trainer working over at DNA Health and Fitness. I mean, so often there was a big trend, a big rise in PTs thinking they're evidence based, but they haven't read any of the studies. They would literally just go on YouTube, follow someone, and say, "Oh yeah, this," or not a really true grasp and understanding. But I think Aled does an amazing job of really understanding the scientific stuff and putting it into practice practically. And he also has a love of MLM companies to rival yours. I think he'll share some slides on that. But I think he's a Welsh supporter, rugby, so we're going to try and stay clear of that. And we'll probably take a guess on how long it takes for the Wales to come up in the chat. I've sort of briefed him saying, no rugby chat today, because obviously we didn't have the best one, but you never know. But I think it's going to be
It'll probably be the Lions team. Yeah. That's the big news that's come out at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But more often than not, in the home gym group, it's all nutrition questions that people want to know. It's the big thing. Like even with all the information there is on the internet, people want to know as much as they can about nutrition. So I think we've got some questions from today, so we're going to put them up for him and hopefully have a good chat. So hopefully we're going to get him on now. I've just sent the link out to him, so we should be expecting him to arrive on the meeting any moment now. So I think I'm going to ask him a few questions about fasting today, I think, because that's one that's quite popular on the YouTubes. There's that guy, fasting. Yeah, have you seen that Canadian guy? I think he's called Will Tenneman or something. He basically he's got a very good channel where he just does different style diets for a week and reports how he feels. And some of them are quite good, actually. They're quite funny. But one I watched recently was that the diet was you have to eat, what was it? You'd fast for the morning, but then you have to go to Chipotle, which those that don't know, it's like a Mexican kind of restaurant, and have burritos. The biggest, you have like this massive steak bowl. So you have that one meal, and then the next meal at night time is a whole bar of dark chocolate, and that's all you eat. And the guy's got it off, says he does this every day.
He's going to have...
It's crazy. It's crazy, isn't it?
Constipated. And oh my God, so malnourished if you did that for I'm guessing in a week he's dropped a shed load of weight. There's no carbs. If it's a steak bowl and some dark chocolate, there's like zero carb.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is one of the things I quite like about, I think Alad's probably sorting out his kids to bed. He's in my boat as well, sorting kids out, getting them sorted. But one of the reasons I can be a fan of fasting is I like eating big meals, I like the feeling of feeling like a fat pig when I've smashed in loads of food. So if you can sort of mindset wise, if you try and eat 1,500 calories of good food in one go, it's filling, right? You feel really I'm smashing the food in. So your overall calorie intake is going to be maybe lower, but the fact that you're smashing it in all at once makes you feel good on it. Oh, here he comes. So yeah, he's just legging up now. Mr. Nutrition himself. Aled, see if he needs to message him to do something.
I can hear something on the microphone.
Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Here he is. Hey, Aled, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly. How are you getting on?
I'm good. Are we live?
We are live, mate. We have done our big introductions. We've done a bit of a segue, but we are here, mate. We are talking live with Aled from DNA. So, mate, we've introduced you as the guy, a true evidence-based trainer, I would say. I think we've been mates on Facebook for a few years now. I think we introduced, I don't know how I think it was through coffee, wasn't it? You put an order in and we just got chatting through there.
I think it was, when you were barbels and beans, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still doing it. Just haven't done the coffee for a while. But you did get me thinking the other day. We were chatting. I was like, why aren't I making coffee anymore? But, we'll chat there again. But no, obviously appreciate the big orders you put in. But basically, we sort of introduced you as an evidence-based trainer. But I mean, if you just want to go off and have a little chat about yourself.
Yeah. So yeah, how did I end up here? So yeah, a bit of background about me. Bit like Dan, I used to play semi-professional rugby up to kind of fourth tier of English rugby. And essentially I got into kind of health, fitness, nutrition. It was all around trying to improve my rugby performance. Around the time I was in university. And from there, you delve down the rabbit holes. At the time, people probably listening to this won't remember, it was all forum-based. Everything was forums. So
T-Nation, mate.
Yeah, bodybuilding.com, T-Nation. And you couldn't, what really kind of triggered me and got me into it and researching things and taking a kind of evidence-based approach was you could never get you couldn't get the truth, as in, around subjects in fitness and bodybuilding, whatever.
A lot of bro science going on in the forum.
Yeah. And it's weird. It's still prevalent to this day, even because you can see in some of the questions that have been asked on my appearance tonight for the podcast. It's amazing how some of these myths just perpetuate themselves.
Yeah. I kind of, because we're in the industry, right? And we're with it every day. I just presumed a lot of these things are. We're still talking about that, but yeah, it needs to be done. Yeah, I mean, you got me thinking earlier about the forums. I remember on bodybuilder.com, it was Lay Norton. Do you remember Bob Ciccarello? He was quite a famous bodybuilder. He's been in loads of films and stuff like that. And they were having this massive argument about fasted cardio, like literally this huge thing. These two like quite well-known guys. What was his name? Straight Flex. That was Lay Norton, wasn't it? I remember that bodybuilding. But just having this massive set to in the comments, I was like, stuff like that. It's all on Facebook and Instagram now, isn't it? The forums, I'm not sure, are as big as they used to be.
No, so it was, it was basically, and I used to, one of the forums that really molded me as an evidence-based coach before I did any kind of, I suppose, qualifications or anything like that was Lyle McDonald, so bodyrecomposition.com.
Yes.
And if you're friends with Lyle on Facebook or if you've seen any of his content,
does he have friends? He seems so angry.
But he tells it as it is. And
just a bit, right? Yeah.
In fairness to Lyle, like the amount of free, if I was to advise anybody listening to this, if you wanted to like assimilate some of the best knowledge on any nutrition topic, that's free and is still bang on years down the line, just go and read all the free articles he's got on bodyrecomposition.com. They're still, for the most part, bang on. And even some of it, what I found funny following Lyle for the last 15 years is he was way ahead of the curve on things like flexible dieting and if it fits your macros and all those things that have become mainstream. Protein intake, you name it, Lyle's been there and is 9 times out of 10 been proven to be right on it as well, even though he can be a bit of a polarizing figure. So
he always pops up. It was someone's. I think it might have been Mike Israel's feed that it popped up in not the best light. I don't want to be shitmongering here, but I've seen a few people have arguments with him, shall we say, over the years. But like you say, another level in terms of intelligence and the information he puts out, literally way up there. But these are the kind of guys I think is. You've got us as coaches, PTs, coaches, online coaches. There's us, and then there's the way I see it, there's another, informative level above us. You guys like Aled McDonald, what's his name, Eric Helms, those kind of guys that you look to just for their information. And it's just with what they know, it's absolutely incredible. You'd love to almost just have them around your house for a couple of weeks and just pick everything, and you still wouldn't even scratch the surface of what these guys know and how far ahead they are.
Eric Helms is another one. I'd cite. The guys there at Team, what they call 3DMJ, in terms of, their knowledge on natural bodybuilding and just the kind of evidence-based fitness field. I've met Eric a couple of times in person, and he's one of those guys that you could talk to forever, but he's just so generous with his time as well. Nothing ever feels like too much trouble. So I met him as part of the Shredded by Science, as they were at the time, used to do conferences.
Was that Luke's company?
Yeah, Luke Johnson.
Yes, yeah. I've randomly had him in my car once. Yeah. That's why. What are they called now?
I think they're now the Personal Trainer Collective, aren't they, rather than Shredded by Science? Because they kind of moved away from online coaching and breached more into upskilling PTs and people who want.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Yes, of course, yeah. Because he did a talk at Mike Thurston's gym years ago, and I think they had the dude that runs Lift the Bar that was there as well. It was good actually. Ben Tormey organizer. God, we're going way back now. This is like years and years and years ago. But yeah, cool. I mean, they're obviously doing some great stuff. But yeah, Eric is. I was listening to a podcast the other day with them. Do you remember? Do you remember the Powercast when it was? Silent Mike and Jim McDonald, they've all, I don't know, I think they went separate ways and whatnot, but it was, you're right, when he's talking, he's the kind of guy, when they talk, it's like when you post a statement, it's like you listen, you read it, you really sort of take it in, like, okay, this is, I'm really listening to this and taking it in because I know they're very well informed and educated. So, I mean,
it's that kind of, like you were saying, the levels thing, because obviously Eric, he's a PhD and he lectures in university as well. So,
it's in New Zealand, isn't he?
Yeah.
But they're in powerlifting as well. I think he coaches Bryce Lewis as well. I mean, even though the guy deadlifts, Bryce Lewis deadlifts is like 360. He's a world champion. I mean, if you look at Eric's lifts, they're good, but they're not, this super high level. So normally as coaches, we're always looking to someone that's a lot stronger than us because they'll know how to get there and all that. But I think it's testament to Eric's methods. And if you haven't got it, by the way, everyone go download the muscle and strength pyramids. They're incredible. But the testament to his knowledge and coaching, that someone who is incredibly strong and much stronger than him is still backs him to do his coaching and programming, because he obviously trusts the process and knows he's probably one of the most, if not the most informed guy to do it.
I guess we could have we could kind of segue a little bit there into, and probably you and Don see it, is that do you there's always that debate, isn't there, about whether, if you're looking for a coach, do you employ a coach who has got excellent knowledge and excellent coaching ability versus a coach who looks great, so you might want to look like him, or is just got that natural kind of God-given ability in terms of strength, and they've never had to, not they've never had to work hard, but relatively compared to other people, they've had to, they're just gifted in the strength department. So you could almost, we could almost segue there into what makes a good coach. And
I think it's a great combo, because I've had this with myself. Even I know all of this, but if I choose a coach, I still want them to be crazy strong, or have done something that maybe I haven't. Even though I know all of this, if I'm going to try and get ripped, I need my coach to be ripped. If I want to get strong as hell, they better be, ripping big weights off the floor, but knowing this at the same time. So what I'm trying to say is, I know all of that, but I still want it.
I think what it is they've got to have been in those shoes. So I can't be coached by somebody who's read a bodybuilding textbook that's never had to take themselves down to that like 3 to 5% body fat, because there's weird things that go on in your brain at that sort of level that, unless you've been there and experienced it, you just don't know, and you can't empathize with them. So I think it is important that they've got to at least have been in the shoes of the person they're trying to work with, if that makes sense. So if you're a lifestyle coach, if you're 2 steps ahead, if you're in relatively good shape and basically have your life together, as long as you're 1 step ahead of the people you're trying to coach, it shouldn't really be a problem. The problem then comes when, as you said, you get these influencers on Instagram that have got 1 million followers that genetically they just are shredded pretty much most of the year, probably take some PEDs and some other things as well to stay that way. And they put out an ebook for like 20 quid. That's just shit. But because they've got 1 million followers, they sell 10,000 copies.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fine line between walking the path and coaching, because some of the best coaches in the world weren't the best athletes themselves.
That's what I was going to
competed.
Say, yeah. Because it's, not I guess to blow my own trumpet, I've never competed nationally powerlifting. I'm strongish compared to my friends and I who all train and have played sport. We all call them civvies. So people who've never really even played amateur sport, just your average Joe walks on the street. So I guess, when I say to friends who've never trained, never played sport, oh, yeah, I can deadlift 240. They're like, oh, that's amazing. But then compared to somebody who's in strength sports, it's pretty bang average. But I've coached some of my clients to national finals, in terms of powerlifting, but I've never been at that level. But I guess, yeah, you're right there, Don. You do need a bit of that lived experience to be able to do it to a good degree.
Yeah, but I think it's the trust as well with the client. You've obviously put enough. You've obviously demonstrated enough knowledge and application experience that you can get someone to that level. So although you maybe haven't, 240 is still no joke. That's a great lift. So it's kind of like you've obviously know something, but then the fact you can get someone else to that level is you've now got that behind you. So you don't have to just rely on being an athlete, like, for example, if I was looking for a coach, I probably wouldn't go for someone that takes performance enhancing drugs. Not to say there's anything that bad on that, but I just personally, as a a fake natty lifter, I want someone that hasn't had that thing sort of in their programming. There's like another thing in it, where so that's why I always look more towards the natty guys. Well, they say that, I'm sure they are, but in powerlifting and go like that. But yeah, like it's that marriage of knowledge and a bit of experience as well. I think you need to have some, they call it iron cred. So the fact you can lift is good. I mean, if you were talking, we were deadlifting like 180 or something like that, then we might have a different conversation if you're training like strength athletes. But you aren't. So yeah, you've got a base understanding there, right? So you can push in the right direction. Nice. So, right, we have a ton of questions from the group. I think, Don, do you have them up, or should I try and find them now?
Yeah, I've got them.
Yeah,
so first question, apologies about that. Ben Ingerson, if you could hold one lifting world record, which would it be?
Oh, man.
That's a cool one. Yeah, I do like strength-based questions. I'm a bit of a kind of niche strength sports geek. So obviously, I don't know if you covered it a little bit. Yeah, I do like a bit of grip stuff, but I don't know whether you covered it in the intro. But in 2019, I lifted the Dinnie Stones up in Scotland. So in terms of one lifting world record, I love the whole culture around kind of the more historical strength sports, so Highland Games, strongman, stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
So if it was one world record, I'd love to be able to say I could. There's a world record for holding the Dinnie Stones locked out for the longest amount of time. A guy called I'll look him up. He's a local guy in Lancashire, holds the world record for it. And bear in mind they weigh in combination 332.5 kilos, and he's held them for over a minute. Is the world record.
Jesus.
So yeah.
Yeah, didn't he? Like a few of the guys at the gym have got Dinnie handles, and it's grip guys and odd strength. We got a few stone lifters in the gym that travel around the Highlands, like picking up random objects, and there's something so pure about it. And I do love the tradition behind it. I haven't seen. I don't know if it's on Netflix. I don't know where it is, but there's a documentary I think of the stone lifts around Scotland, and I think
it's what inspired me to go after it.
Is it? Oh, brilliant!
It's called, Rogue, who make the
Yes.
gym equipment or CrossFit equipment. Rogue have done a series of strength documentaries, and they're all excellent. But the one that really, I don't know, just resonated with me, it's called Stoneland, and it's
that's it. Yeah, that's the one.
It just follows a couple of guys around Scotland detailing the lifting the manhood stones, including the Dinnie Stones. And if you've got a spare 45 minutes, if you're listening to this, it's honestly one of the, for me, it's super inspirational. I must have watched it 10 times or more.
I love stones, man.
Just how I feel about the Ronnie Coleman documentary.
Yeah, buddy. That's the thing. You'll find dudes that lift stones or throw shit. They're really into it. Like it's not just picking something up. It's a real passion. It's quite a big thing. Like you mentioned manhood stones. So what makes them manhood stones? It's
really interesting actually. You go back to the tradition in I suppose, Gaelic cultures. So you can trace it through so Scottish, Welsh, Irish, even down to the Basques who live in South France, northern Spain, obviously Icelandic and Scandi countries. But traditionally up in Scotland, so your your family or your tribe would be in a glen, and in that glen would be a manhood stone, which you would have to prove you could lift before they would accept you back into the tribe as a man, back in the day. I don't know if they'd exile you or something if you couldn't lift them, but it was considered like your manhood test at age 13, 15, 16, whatever. And so some of these stones are, hundreds of years old, and they're still there now. So you can legitimately go and lift a stone that probably hundreds of thousands of people have done in the past, and it's kind of
very cool.
Yeah, stood the test of time, and they're still true tests of strength now. I mean, some of the stones are genuinely heavy. If we were to compare it to some of the Atlas stones, the pros are moving in, World Strongman. But some of the stones are up in the 160, 180 kilo mark. So they're and these guys were lifting them hundreds of years ago. So
it's nuts, isn't it? I've got a couple. We want to try to get him on the podcast. My friend Chris and Dave and Jim. I think they're all in the group as well. Scottish lads, Celts, but they actually did have an American guy travel to Scotland purely.
Was it Ryan Stewart?
I think I'm not sure his name, but he stayed with Chris, but basically came around and stayed with him and just went around Scotland lifting stones.
Yeah,
and then flew back there. And I was like, that's pretty cool. I love that. But can you imagine that telling that to your missus? Some mad Yanks coming around the house for 2 weeks to go lift stones. Okay, bye. You're like, okay then.
Yeah, Ryan's a super cool dude. I think he's based up in Utah, and he's done a lot of work for the kind of almost archaeology, like history of the stones. So he's refound a load of stones in Finland and Sweden that were lost, that were just covered in moss, hidden in the forest, and also in Iceland as well. Even though in Iceland a lot of the stones are kind of protected as, I guess you'd call them, national monuments. So like the government actually protects some of the stones in Iceland, but he's found some stones that people had forgotten about due to the ebbs of time and things like that. It's he's a really cool guy.
Oh, that's so cool. You get me excited about stones now, but I think that's so bad. I just
found Dan's new hobby.
I don't know if I could pick them up, but I was a stag doing a Malta. We found a big stone and I picked it up in front of everyone. I was like, yeah, and I was like, yeah, like just there's something just so pure and just like this is strength sports, like seeing that big rock going, I can pick that up, or I'm going to try and pick that up. And if you pick it up and your mate doesn't, you're like, wow, well, there you go. Isn't that just what strength sports is?
It's a huge leveler, isn't it? It's like, it's a bit, when people try to make comparisons about who's the strongest pound for pound, or, Wilks scores and things like that. If the stone weighs 180 kilos, it's 180 kilos to me, to you, to Don, to anyone. So either you shift it or you don't. There's no, it is what it is.
Well, that's what the objectiveness of strength sports I love, because it's not up to someone else. It's just, can you lift it or can't you? But you'll go to one day, you'll go to lift it and it'll feel like it's glued to the floor. You come back again, you're like, oh fuck, I nailed it. But then there'll be that guy. But then obviously there's a technique as well. So someone will lift it and know exactly how to do it, where to put their body, and you're like, oh, you gem wicket, if I just knew how to do that. But then you want to go back and go lift it. Oh mate, I want to go lift stones now. All right, I'm finishing the podcast. I'm going up to Scotland. It's actually not too far from here. I think within 2 hours I could be in the borders. So
there's a good circuit you can do of, I think there's 5 or 6 stones that are in the, do they call it the Perth Loop or something like that?
Yeah.
But then there's a couple that are up in like the Outer Hebrides. So nobody's going to go and lift those. But
challenge accepted. I love that. Yeah, stones. But
tell you what, I'll set you a challenge now, Dan. When we hit like 10,000 subscribers, we have to do a road trip to go and lift these stones.
I'll come with you. I would love to do that.
Yeah,
I'm sure we could base something.
We'll set a challenge now. Any of you listeners that are still listening when we're at 10,000 subscribers, remind us, because I'm guessing that's going to take a while. Yeah, I said that when we hit 10,000 subscribers, we've got to do the challenge of finding these stones in the Outer Hebrides. My missus is not going to be happy about me doing that. Well, it's probably not going to be for another 5-10 years yet. So.
Oh, mate, it was the closest we get to a rugby tour, hey, lifting stones. Oh, cool. But no, yeah, stones. Yeah, I've got a new. I need to go watch Stonelands.
An more interesting answer to that question than I was expecting. Just expecting to say like deadlift or something. So.
No, it's a bit. So the next one we've got from Alan Bray says, "Is it true you can only utilize 30 grams of protein per meal? I regularly have 70 plus in a meal."
Does he want the short answer or the long answer?
We've got time. Get long.
This is one I hate and comes up time and time again. And when I've looked into this, I think you can trace the history of this myth back to almost the genesis of the supplement industry in like the late 80s, early 90s. So if you take a scoop of protein now from your favorite protein powder, no brands mentioned, it will generally contain 23 to 25 grams of protein in a 30-gram scoop. And at the time, I suppose, when protein powders were launching, it was within supplement companies' vested interest to say, well, actually, guys, you can only absorb X amount of protein per meal. So you need to have breakfast, then you need to have a shake at 11, then you have your lunch, then you need to have a mid-afternoon shake, then your dinner, and then a shake before you go to bed to maximize your kind of anabolism and the amount of protein you can absorb. But I suppose if you take it even back further than that, it doesn't make evolutionary sense that we can only absorb 30 grams of protein in a meal, because in times of, I suppose, famine or drought or whatever, when we were, apes or cavemen and women running about, we wouldn't always be able to eat regimented meals through, at given periods throughout the day. So we'd all end up skinny with no gains and probably would have eaten by, saber-toothed lions or something.
Yeah. Excuse me, I'm just off of this saber-tooth now.
But I
can't.
I've
lost all my gains.
But no,
sorry, I can't go on this hunt. My blood sugar's a little low.
But no, when you look at the research on it, essentially, like, you then get to the question of, you need a certain amount of protein to maximize muscle protein synthesis, but you also need to factor in to kind of how quickly digested and absorbed that protein source is. So, for example, with something like whey, we know that it kind of maximizes amino acid levels in your blood within about 60 minutes. But for something like a steak, you could be digesting and assimilating that for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. So it wouldn't make sense if we could only absorb 30 grams of protein that you're eating a big ass steak, and then a big proportion of that is being wasted. So the answer to the question is you absorb everything you eat, but then in terms of muscle protein synthesis, there is a lower threshold in terms of, I suppose, protein quantity, and that's to do with obviously the type of protein, as in how much leucine and essential amino acids it contains, and the total amount of that protein as well. So research, I think, recently has basically topped out that you need around about 20 grams of complete protein to maximize muscle protein synthesis in a given feeding. So then people have taken that to say, well, anything above that is wasted, but forgetting that muscle growth or recovery from training is not just about triggering muscle protein synthesis. It's also about preventing muscle protein breakdown. So you want to trigger muscle protein synthesis, but you also want to prevent muscle protein breakdown. Now, how is the best way of preventing muscle protein breakdown? It's making sure we consume sufficient levels of protein and amino acids. So yes, above a certain quantity of protein in a meal, you're not going to push muscle protein synthesis rates any higher, but that doesn't mean those additional amino acids are going to be wasted, because we still use protein for other other functions in the body, from preventing muscle protein breakdown to synthesizing enzymes to things like your hair and your nails, collagen in your skin. So I often find, I don't know about you guys, but I often find when I work with clients who, normal day-to-day average Joes, average girls, who have traditionally been eating, a Western style diet, quite low in protein, and especially true for the female clients, a lot of them will report when we get them up to a decent intake of protein, my skin is more radiant, my nails are stronger, my hair looks better. And it's because they probably, even if you're not, wanting to step on stage in a pair of trunks or lift, or deadlift 300 kilos, most people need to eat probably more protein than they realize or than a traditional Western diet would give them.
I think you'll find most, as you said, if you look at most people's diets, they don't get enough protein at breakfast. They have a very small amount of lunch, and the majority of their protein then is that one big feed in the evening. Whereas, as you said, just getting somebody to space that out kind of more evenly through the day. So I personally take between 50 and 60 grams of protein in 2 shakes a day. And I've seen a massive improvement in my own physique over the last 12 months, upping my protein content, but I can't fit in 6 meals a day when I've got my little one around. So I have quite 60 gram portions over 4 meals, and I wouldn't say, well, I don't feel any of it's wasted. I might be making some expensive urine, but oh well.
I ate 750 grams of mince yesterday in one go.
Nice. An entire tray of mince in one go. Was that pre or post cooked whey?
No, that was pre. So I know basically
probably about 500 grams then.
No. It was 750. So it was raw 750.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the reason I did that is we were talking about a bit earlier. I'm experimenting with, I wouldn't say fasting, I would say almost just having a late breakfast, but I'm having a little go at condensing calories into 2 big meals, maybe, because the idea, say if I'm on about 3,000 calories, putting in 2 big meals actually quite excites me, because as we said earlier, I like feeling of being a fat pig. So that 2 big stuffed meals, I did actually found for the first time in, I might even say years, I didn't eat for about 5 hours on the trot, which is unheard of for me. Basically the moment I start eating, I'm constant. I can go and I'm constantly waiting for the next meal. But I did notice with this, because I did have 2 jacket potatoes, so that's, quite satiating food and, a bit of fiber and that kind of stuff. I did find it was just wow, this could work. So we always talk about the importance of macros, micros, that kind of stuff, but I'm really starting to get into, which I guess I always have been, but now I'm dieting again, how to space it. We always say it's up to you what you want to do, but I think this might be, it's a bit of a segue, but how maybe this is why fasting grew in such popularity, because you could put such a large amount of food in such a short window. So I guess my next question to Alan would be, does fasting work because of the calorie restriction, or is there other kind of magical other things going on, like hormone regulation and stuff like that we don't know about?
I would say on the fat, I used to be a huge advocate of intermittent fasting. I suppose the godfather of the modern movement of intermittent fasting would be a chap called Martin Berkan, a Swedish powerlifter, and he Lean Gains, his website is called, if you're unfamiliar.
Yes, we all know Lean Gains. Great website. Yeah.
So
that takes me back.
The more kind of what most people associate with intermittent fasting these days is the 16-8. So 16 hours fasted, 8 hours worth of feeding per day. Forgetting that is just one form of intermittent fasting. So you've got things like religious forms like Ramadan, which a lot of people have are they just going through or just gone through?
They're in it at the moment.
Excuse my ignorance. You've got alternate day fasting, where people will eat for a day and fast for a day. and other variations on the theme. 36-hour fasts thrown in throughout the week, 24-hour fasts, other forms of time restriction.
5-2 as well, haven't you?
Yeah, 5-2, which has been popularized into a diet book.
Or if you Mark Bell, you do like 4-day fasts, isn't it? You just did.
Yeah. Or if you really want to go down the crazy rabbit hole, look up a chap from Canada who pens the snake diet.
Yes, I've heard of this guy.
And he is nuts, absolutely nuts, and he's not grounded in any science. But he basically says if you're fat, just don't eat for like huge, like 7 to 14 day, periods at a time. So eat like a snake, essentially. So don't eat for 7 to 14 days, then eat for a couple of days, then do the same again. And he's got a huge, I kid you not, like cult following, like hundreds of thousands of people. Like his
it will work.
Yeah.
Let it wait.
But he claims, he's at the other end of the spectrum. He claims to be able to fix everything with this kind of snake diet fasting, from cancer to autoimmune conditions to all sorts of things. And shock horror, people who are severely overweight, who don't eat for a long period of time, they feel better because obviously things like their fight and flight hormones are elevated, and they lose weight quickly, so they get motivation, get buy-in, so they want to do it more. So it kind of becomes.
They're not filling themselves full of that crap food all the time, so their liver can actually catch up and get rid of some of the stuff that's floating around in them.
Who would have thought not eating works for fat loss?
Yeah. Oh wow, yeah.
But in terms of, does fasting work because of calorie restriction or anything hormonal? So far as I've seen and looked into the topic, there's been some research on it published, in the last few years, and it seems to all come back to, a lot of people will talk about things like autophagy, or your body's process for getting rid of old cells, essentially. And your body will do that whether you're fasting or not, but it also does it as a result of calorie restriction. So there's nothing that I've seen in the research recently that suggests that fasting has any magical benefits above and beyond, one, adherence. If you like to eat in that pattern, go for it. And two, like Dan had mentioned earlier, you get to eat bigger meals. So when you're dieting, if I was to say, Don, there's 1,800 calories to diet on, dude, would you prefer 6 300-calorie meals or 3 600-calorie meals? It should, it's probably a no-brainer. And so, most people in a 16-hour fasted, 8-hour feeding window would prefer 3 600-calorie meals than 6 tiny little snacks for Dan.
I just love eating. That's probably why I'm nearly 20 stone. I just eat all the time.
I mean, I was a huge advocate of it for a long while. I used to do it myself. And I guess, like anything, it's not risk reward. There's trade-offs with it. I think if you're looking to, optimally recover and, get shredded for a bodybuilding competition, things like that, you really, with intermittent fasting in a 16-8 window, I would say you're limiting your opportunities to trigger muscle protein synthesis and recover from training and stuff like that. With the caveat of, if you're hitting 200 grams of protein in an 8-hour window versus 200 grams of protein in how long are people awake in a typical work day? I know 12 to 16 hours. It's probably the same in terms of effects, maybe slightly skewed towards the more traditional meal pattern in terms of, you're getting maybe 4 or 5 triggers of muscle protein synthesis throughout the day rather than 3 in a constrained window. But when you're looking to lose fat, obviously the biggest driver is maintaining energy balance, a negative energy balance, so calorie restriction. So if you find fasting is your ticket to that and being consistent with it, then go for it. But it's not magic.
Yeah, I think so. I think you made a good point there. Like, I think potentially bodybuilders maybe are looking for every single percent they can get to step on stage. So if we talk about maximizing protein synthesis, nailing the post-workout window, that kind of stuff, you probably typically see all the guys at the top, on
every 3 to 4
5,
hours.
6 meals. Yeah, 3 to 4 hours.
Waking up in the night, so they'll go to
Yeah.
sleep, and then they'll wake up to have another
Yeah.
meal to then go back to sleep, sort of thing. Like they're maximizing every single opportunity to trigger protein synthesis.
But maybe for like, you know, Gen Pop or even athletes or people that are still in fucking phenomenal shape, maybe that's not the way. So maybe something like fasting can fit in with people's lives really well. It could be a tool to have in your box to employ to use. So yeah, you're not, you know, maximizing synthesis, all this kind of stuff, but you're doing so much that you're still going to make some really good gains. It's like I say this with people with the strength guys I train is, you know, it's not necessarily every session is perfect. It's the mere fact we're creating this, you know, Mike T. calls it the momentum, you know, so you're constantly just building momentum, laying things on top of each other. And I think it's the same with habits, with diet, and diet and training go together, but you know, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but the mere fact you're putting in all this effort, it's kind of always going in the right direction, and you're still going to get sick results, you know?
Yeah. And I think that the negative stuff I see with intermittent fasting is it can, in some people, in some populations, I see trigger bad relationships with food. So you kind of, rather than, you end up ignoring the signals from your body. So some of the clients I've coached who want to use a fasting protocol, I say let's kind of keep it a little bit flexible. So rather than religiously saying it's a 16-hour window and I will not break my fast till 1 p.m. If you're feeling hungry at midday, is an hour either side going to really influence your results? Probably not. And also the other negative side of it I see for some people is it almost puts them into that kind of restrict binge type mindset where you were talking earlier, Dan, about you love having big meals and you find them satiated and keeps you on track. Great. For other people, they break their fast with a huge meal. It kind of screws with their typical hunger signaling. And then if when we're stepping away from maybe a fat loss phase, they find they can't stay satiated. They always need to be looking for a huge meal. And it can lead to, you know, it can lead to some bad behaviors down that sort of route, or even guys like extending their fasting window unnecessarily, just so they can, you know, have a McDonald's for tea, or you know, a 1,200 calorie pizza or whatever. No.
Yeah, I mean, you got me thinking here. Like, I was big into let's just say my IFYM, but like really into it, but to the point that it became an eating disorder where I would be at the end of the day, like, if I move this around and I do that, then I can have this, and then I do that, and then I push that, but I had this, so I can't have that. It would be like constantly like the numbers going on that. But what I also found was, yes, you can have anything you like. It's great. You can have, let's say, 10% of your calorie intake can be complete shit. Fantastic, brilliant. But what I found was some foods were just too fucking delicious. So if you gave me if you gave me a generic chocolate, yeah, fine, no problem. If you gave me like a Domino's or, you know, a donut, I'm like, I'm not stopping. Like, it's off.
All things going.
Yeah. So as much as I guess I do have an eating disorder, I suppose. Yeah. But like, there were just things that were just too.
I think that's more disordered
tasty.
eating than an eating disorder, mate.
Yeah. I have very much disordered eating. But I was just. We
all have them, don't we? I bet Don could name a food that he cannot be moderate with, whether he's dieting or not. For me, I have two. One is biscuits. If you put a pack of, you know, chocolate covered hobnobs in the hat, hotnobs.
That's a shit biscuit, man.
No, you know, something.
I am dieting at the moment, so this.
If you put something like that in the house, it's going whether I'm dieting or not. That, you know, I can't just have one with a cup of tea. The whole thing is going. And the other one is cereal for me, like some kids' cereal.
Cereal, so good.
I could do bowl after bowl of crunchy nut cornflakes. Gone.
Oh, dude, you're making me want to go for that now.
But so it's even somebody who coaches people of this as a living, you know, is, you know, into his own health and nutrition. There's certain foods I can't be moderate with, and no doubt, same for you, same for Don. So I think
IPAs.
I think for those. That's just a function of those foods being freaking delicious, you know, because they are those, you know, they're high sugar, high carb, high fat, and calorie dense in not a lot of volume. So, but yeah,
Like there's certain things you can have which are fine, but it's just hell though. But I mean, how do we approach weekend eating? Because even as coaches life, you can give all this, don't I do all your hard work. The moment Friday night comes, it's fucking hard. I mean, what do you do with people, with clients to or yourself to keep on track over the weekend? Or do you, another way I've heard is maybe people budgeting their calories and pushing them towards the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, there's the kind of planning to fail strategy, so which tends to go nice with most people, general population, or kind of recreational athletes. So you're on it Monday to Friday, 5 days of the week, and then we plan for some flexibility over a weekend. So either a Friday, Saturday, or a Saturday, Sunday for most people, because that's when people tend, in non-pandemic circumstances, that's when we tend to have social stuff on, or time with family, friends, stag do's, weddings, birthday parties, etc., etc. So plan to fail. I think if you're setting your clients up to the weekend then becomes a stress, and there's senses of guilt and stuff around maybe overeating on the weekend, that's as bad as having no plan at all. That said, some people need structure with their weekends. So you can give them a free meal perhaps and say, right, as long as you stay to plan on a Saturday, you can have a free meal Saturday night, and it can be whatever you want within moderation. Be it a pizza, Five Guys, McDonald's, whatever your vice is, fish and chips, you name it. Because one meal out of a whole week is not gonna wreck your progress. And in fact,
challenge accepted.
Yeah. But I think that the dark side of that again is where we get into, and Don will see it in the bodybuilding community, is when we get into these guys we see on YouTube with, let's do a 10,000 calorie eating challenge, and how much can I pound down on my cheat day? And we've seen it with
yeah.
If you're a fan,
I was having a discussion with somebody in the group about using the word cheat meal.
Yeah.
And how it can set people up to have a really, really negative relationship with food, because if you're dieting, if you're calling it a cheat, you are setting up that food to be naughty, to be bad.
Yeah.
And you are setting yourself up to be in a binging cycle.
That restrict binge.
Yeah. And then, right, I get my cheat meal, and that cheat meal will go from being relatively all right. So maybe you have a homemade burger and some chips. So that's what, 500 calories. So just a normal amount of calories, to then go into, it's my cheat meal. So I'm now going to have a full Domino's, some Ben & Jerry's, and some popcorn as we watch a film. You've suddenly gone from 500 calories up to nearly 3,000 calories in the space of kind of a couple of hours. So when it's that secondary option, that is the sort of level of binge that could undo a lot of the hard work that you're doing. And by setting it up as, I was just trying to explain how the utilization of the word cheat, I've seen it so many times when you're trying to do this flexibleness with people, and you give people an inch and they take a mile. And if you then add into it, then just the particular wording you use with it. So I like the way that you called it a free meal rather than a cheat meal.
Yeah. Basically, or the other terminology I like to use is life events. So most people who've got a kind of healthy, normal social life, who are not on the smash every weekend, but are just catching up with friends, like I said, birthdays, weddings, stag do's, parties, whatever. Usually, we've all got something like that on once a fortnight, a couple of times a month. So, do you need to program in a cheat meal when probably in a fortnight's time you've got a night out with the boys and the beers? That is essentially your refeed, your cheat meal, your free meal, whatever you want to call it, without even programming for it. So there's that option that I sometimes use with clients. Again, meeting the client where they're at. Some people thrive on structure and need it because their eating up until working with you has been so unstructured and ridiculous that they need regimentation for probably months and years to get to where they need to be. Other people who've got who've got a good handle on their nutrition maybe, that kind of planning to fail as a bit of a psychological break from dieting. So a free meal or a day just where you allow them to have some more calories, and you give them the autonomy to say, right, Monday to Friday, you're eating 2,000 calories. That's going to net you the bulk of your calorie deficit for the week. And then a Saturday, we're going to up that to 2,500 calories, or maybe 3,000 calories. And it just gives them, oh yeah, it's like budgeting, isn't it? With finances, I've got another 1,000 calories to spend. What am I going to spend it on? I could spend it on a pizza, or like you said earlier, Don, I could spend it on a homemade cheat meal it's going to go further. Your calories are going to go further. You're going to feel more satiated, and it's probably not going to taste all that worse than a shop bought option or a restaurant bought option.
And I think it's also explaining to people how, right, yes, you've had these extra calories come in. When you step on the scales the next day, you are going to be heavier. 100%. There's no way avoiding it. You're going to be heavier. However, the majority of that is going to be glycogen and water. Like, I've seen people, I remember weighing myself after Christmas dinner this last year, and I shot up like 4 kilos in a day.
Yeah.
And even for me as a fitness professional, I was like, Jesus Christ, what did I eat yesterday? But then it came like, because I then was like, right, okay, just kind of get back to normal eating now. It came back down to like, what, half a kilo heavier or whatever within like 2 or 3 days. But some people will freak out at that new high number and go, and fully hit the fuck it button and then go and smash a tin of roses because they've already put like 4 kilos on. May as well like throw the baby out with the bathwater sort of thing. I think for a lot of people, it's one of the reasons why, especially at first, I get people to weigh themselves every day so that they can see these natural fluctuations that happen and just basically say, don't panic, like log it and then look at it over a week or over a month. Like, is the general trajectory going this way? Then you're in a good place. Like, keep going.
Absolutely.
If it's like more horizontal or even going up, then there's probably something we need to do.
Yeah, ultimately the scale is just data. It doesn't, I always say to clients, it doesn't define your results. We use the scale, photos, measurements, because between those three, you can usually see what's going on or get an accurate picture of what's going on. For ladies especially, the scale is an absolute, excuse my French, head fuck, because not only can your diet composition affect what you're going to see day to day, so how many carbs you've eaten, how much salt you've eaten, whether you're well hydrated, how much fiber you've eaten, but also their monthly cycle can vary as well. So they get, you get a spike in water weight around the time they ovulate, and a spike of water weight around the time they menstruate. So that, coupled with maybe disordered eating as well, or cheat meals, can be a recipe for especially the ladies I've coached, for it to be really difficult to see what's going on. But yeah, like you said, the scale is just a tool. It just tells you your total body mass. It doesn't tell you the composition of that mass. So whether it's water, muscle, fat, food contents in your gut, muscle glycogen, it's just, it is just a data point.
Definitely. Right. Next question. Oh, I've lost the questions. They've literally disappeared. Right, where have they gone?
We had one on, if you could pick any flavour ice cream, what would it be? Ice cream is rubbish.
Fuck off. You're wrong.
No,
you don't say that.
I'm not a huge ice cream fan, but when I do partake in ice cream, it's Kinder Bueno for me.
Ooh.
Just take some
Bueno
time.
ice cream.
Game changer. So for me, it's rum and raisin.
I do like a rum and raisin.
Weird.
What is going on right now?
Oh, I like a nice vanilla. It's really nice.
Hey,
Fucking weirdos.
Vanilla, world's most popular ice cream flavour. People always say don't be vanilla.
Did you ever do a rugby trip to Rome, Ben, Dan?
I've been to Italy pre-season. Yeah.
You go to the ice cream sellers that are just on the side of the road, like this. They do something different with their
just gelato.
Gelato.
Yeah. No, we went to. I saw the name, and yeah, the rest. I actually remember coming back saying I think I preferred pizza from Pizza Express to where we went. Like, that's how uncultured I was at the time. Whereas now, like, I actually seek out wood-fired pizza makers in my area because I've become a loser and obsessed with anything that tastes nice. Like barbecue, I have to go to the next level. I can't just have a few sausages. It's got to be reverse seared, dry aged steak now. It's just like I always go too far on these kind of things. But yeah, I like ice cream now. It's got to be, for me at the moment, right? It's a taste sensation. It is the Magnum Millionaire shortbread cracked ice cream. So it comes in a little tub, but then you like crunch it and it's got all the chocolate around it. But it's just a taste sensation, and the ice cream is like really soft. And I've got some downstairs actually.
Have some
that tub is not going to be there in the morning.
Have some empathy for your guy who's dieting here, Dan.
Yeah, no, well, technically I'm dieting as well, but I'm a flexible dieter, as in I diet for a bit and start again. That's the way I go. But yeah, no, that's a big favourite. But we got another. Moving on, some freak is asking: is there actually such a thing as a superfood?
This is these are the kind of myths I love busting. Actually, that when I look this up, because I did some posts on this years ago, but I'm gonna have to revisit them. There is no actual definition of what it is, what a superfood is. So they're kind of like false labels for food, like things like blueberries, goji berries, kale. What else can we name that people kind of
steak?
Avocado. All these
avocado.
All these kind of
bee pollen, manuka honey. That's another one.
Yeah, manuka honey. Yeah, all these foods that kind of carry this mantle, this label, and when you actually break them down nutritionally, like kale is really no better or worse than broccoli or spinach or another green you could eat. Same with blueberries. Like, they any dark berry has a lot of phytonutrients and things like vitamin C in it. But are they that much extra? Are they so much more super than normal versions of fruit and veg? No. And I think actually there was, whether we may revisit it since we Brexited, but in the EU there was they were looking at introducing legislation to remove the term superfood from certain things because there is no definition of what makes one, and so they're kind of arbitrarily labeled some of these foods.
They just kind of made it up.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, the best one for me is sweet potatoes versus the humble white potato. And when you compare sweet potato, which most people will say, if you asked I guess 10 people in the street what's healthier, a sweet potato or a white potato, they would automatically answer sweet potato. Nutrient for nutrient, they're almost identical. I think sweet potatoes have a bit more potassium, but then normal potatoes have more is it manganese and phosphorus and things like that. And yet calories pretty much identical, macros pretty much identical. Bit more beta carotene in the sweet potato because it's orange, but no real.
That,
And so people demonize the humble white potato, and you talked about it earlier. They're one of the most satiating foods you could eat.
Oh, mate. Well, do you remember the popularity? And I still do think it. I think it's in the right application. I think it's a phenomenal way of eating. The vertical diet. Stan everything goes on about white rice. It's basically the same, if not probably a bit better. But he goes off a lot of his foods, and I use this I use it as a great template for my guys that is trying to get big, because you're talking about foods that are easy on the stomach, digest fast, not satiating at all, just go straight through you so you can eat a lot of. But conversely, if you're trying to lose weight, it's almost like I would personally almost go like the complete opposite and go for carbs, which are really filling, really satiating, voluminous foods, stuff that make you feel a bit full, even though the calorie content isn't that big, as a complete opposite. To those kind of foods that go through you quite quickly. But the big one of those is like white rice, brown rice. Like, there was this big thing, you couldn't possibly eat white rice, it would kill you. It's like, well, China's kind of built on it, and a lot of them are quite lean, so can't be that bad, right? But then we get back to the whole, you know, when we were younger, I think if you didn't worship Poliquin and not eat carbs, you haven't been a PT, or you haven't really been into strength training.
Absolutely.
So that was we had some years of for his incredible, and I do think the guy's a genius and what he's done for the industry. There's a few things I think maybe that wasn't the best approach there.
Was it the whole what was one of his sayings, you shouldn't let anything other than figs touch your lips until you're below 10% body weight?
Was it a lick of a dried prune was my
favorite something one like that.
Him, yeah, it was like, you're allowed a lick of a dried prune until you can see chiseled abs. And I was like, looking back, I think the guy was like just fucking crazy. I mean, he wrote he could speak like 8 languages or something, wrote texts in all of them. Like, it was just another level, right? But
it's like when we talk about the Lyle McDonalds of the world. I think these guys are so intelligent, they're almost like savant level, and so they can't always get across their concepts. But no, superfood bollocks. Are you gonna be that much healthier if you eat kale versus broccoli? No.
You got to be thinking of those people. You eat broccoli. Oh, it's not sprouted broccoli, is it? Like, it's like
purple sprouted broccoli.
Yeah, and I actually had that at a seminar I went to once. I was like, oh, fuck off. That was when I had my big fuck off moment. But speaking of that, quick tip. I mean, is 5 to 6 vegetables a day good, or should we be aiming for a lot more? Or some people are saying you should have 13 a day. Like, what is a good number to have?
I guess you almost get into that philosophical discussion then of like, is diet the only thing that determines health? And when you look at the research and even, I suppose, anecdotal evidence, like who are the healthiest and longest living populations on the planet, then diet is just like one small component of it. You've got to look at things like, are you physically active? Are you sleeping a decent amount per day? Do you have a sense of community or self-worth, exposure to pollutants, sunlight? So diet is one component of that. But in terms of fruit and veg, like, look at the populations that live the longest. Most of them eat a good amount of fruit and vegetables every day. I think for most people, I tend to say if you're eating 2 portions of fruit a day and around about 5 portions of vegetables, and you can I say you can chop and change. So if you eat a bit more fruit and a bit less veg, so around 7 portions of fruit and veg per day, I think you're golden in terms of adequate levels of fiber, phytonutrients, micronutrients that you get in fruit and vegetables. I don't think you can do too much fruit and veg, given the way most people's diets look like when they start working with a coach or a nutritionist. Most people are coming from a baseline of the diet is essentially beige. Even people who call themselves vegan, I've seen beige vegans.
I had a client, she only would eat potatoes. She vegan. She was like, there was nothing else. She would take a jacket potato out and eat like an apple. Like, I was like, okay, but anything else? And it was like, like fucking Aldi ready meals. Like, it's a vegan sausage roll. I was like, still not great. Like, let's look at other things. Yeah,
it's still processed. It's still probably low in fiber, low in
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big I'm Mr. Meat himself. I eat fucking tons of it, but I've had the pleasure of working with some great vegans and friends who are vegans, and it's quite interesting the diets they do. I know, is it Thug Kitchen had a great book about vegan recipes and doing that, and there's some phenomenal food out there, like in terms of vegan. I know a lot of people are like, oh, fucking vegan, shut it down. But I think it could be a good move for a lot more people to look more at other sources of protein, like your quinoas and your grains and that kind of stuff, and it makes cooking a lot more exciting, I think, getting all that other stuff in.
I would say try and, if you were to talk like a diet for optimal health, and I hate terms like that, but I would say try and make the base of your diet almost like vegan-esque, so lots of fruit and veg, but then supplement it with some good sources of protein, some complete sources of protein. So your dairy, your eggs, your fish, your meat, your traditional sources. But yeah, don't be afraid, like you said, to go after things like Quorn. Not that I'd endorse lots of the more processed Quorn type foods you can buy, but it's mycoprotein, so it's basically mushrooms. It's a complete source of protein, full spectrum of amino acids. It's cheap. It's high in fiber. You can flavor it with all kinds of marinades and condiments. So I eat quite a bit of Quorn. Not day to day, but I'll usually have a few portions a week because it's cheap as well.
So we tried to do a meat-free Monday, I think it was, at one point, for the whole environmental thing. And Natalie's just given up with that now. And like when she has her vegetarian stuff, it's like, I'll just do you some chicken breast with it. It's like...
So we're gonna just wrap up in a few minutes, mate. So I'm just gonna pick a couple of questions just to sort of go through, and then basically if we've got more questions in the group, we'll probably add them onto another podcast, or we'll get you on another time. But one that I actually want to know your opinion on is Joe's question of Better Alanine has received a lot of attention recently following Matt Frazier on the Joe Rogan podcast. But what evidence is there to support the claims, and will it improve performance?
I think I'll try and do this very quickly. So there is some good evidence to support beta-alanine having a performance-enhancing effect, but it depends on your sport. I think if you engage in sports where anaerobic performance is important, so say somebody engages in sport where you're doing repeated sprint bouts, so CrossFit would probably, with is it Matt Fraser, did he say? Yeah. CrossFit would probably fit that description. Or if you're, I don't know, in athletics, sprinter, potentially more traditional sport like football, because football is generally, running around a pitch at low intensity interspersed with some high intensity sprints. Then, yeah, I think beta-alanine has some good evidence for that. For your average recreational lifter, who is probably not, unless you're doing things like metabolic conditioning or really short rest interval stuff, I personally wouldn't bother. Also, if you've got the one of the side effects, the paresthesia, is it? I can't remember.
Tingle face.
Yeah, the face tingling. I don't personally like that. Some people, I've heard some people say they vibe off it as like a bit of a pre-workout thing. But
that's one of the reasons why they put it in pre-workouts, because it's one of the few things they put in there that you can actually feel. So people feel their faces crawling, like, oh my God, this stuff is amazing. I'm going to go lift everything.
Yeah. But the thing with, as you'll know, guys, the thing with beta-alanine is you have to, it's like creatine, you have to load it.
Builds up over time.
Yeah, you don't get any benefit from acute supplementation of it. It's purely from saturating your stores and maintaining that over time, like creatine. So
I think the advised dose for saturation is about 6 grams a day, but it depends again if you're taking it as. Oh, is it spread out? Okay, I didn't know that.
Which makes it, from a kind of convenience point of view, makes it quite a supplement that's quite difficult to take, I think, as well. If you're having to have 2 grams in the morning, 2 grams pre-workout, and then who wants their face kind of itching before you go to bed? It's.
Well, I had to stop taking my stim pre-workout before bed because it's great. Whether it's placebo or not, I did feel fucking awesome off of it, but I just wasn't sleeping. And this is a guy, I'm used to drinking tons of coffee, mate, like tons and tons. I'll have a can of Rain and have 2 cups of coffee after it and it'll be fine. But for some reason, pre-workout before bed, I was like, I'm not sleeping. So I've had to cut that one out, unfortunately. But then we'll go for one more question, just because I noticed that we've already had questions from Ben. Well, yeah, I like this question. I can't because Joe's already asked it. Let's go for this one. So, Rick, I suffered to stay on track with any diet or meal prep due to work, kids, life. I think that's a lot of us. Are there any easy fixes like low-hanging fruit, quick wins we can do to make my diet better? I struggle to cut sugar and I will always crave a Mars bar. So sweet cravings is a really common topic for other
yeah, so this is something I go through with a lot of my clients. It's trying to get the diet to fit you than you to fit the diet. And sometimes
Great advice.
Sometimes some of us do need a full overhaul of how we're doing things because we're that far away from where we need to be. But I get people, plan your week, have a general loose structure about what you're doing that week nutritionally. And for most, I recommend for most people, try and plan in 2 slots a week where you do some form of meal prep. And that doesn't mean you need to be a Tupperware wanker. And that doesn't mean you need to be a slave to 6 meals a day. It just means that another way I pitch it to people is if you're going to eat 3 meals a day, 2 meals for function, 1 for fun. And in those 2 meals for function, you cover off your protein, your fibrous veggies, your fruit, maybe things like that, and prepare those meals. So Sunday night, if you were to pitch in 15 to 30 minutes of prep time, you can usually prepare your lunches for the week. So your lunches are then covered. Slow cooker, brilliant for those of us who are time pressured. You can easily make 4 to 6 meals in a slow cooker, bosh it all in, turn it on when you go to bed, and those 6 meals are sat there the next morning waiting for you. You just need to portion them up, freeze the rest, or use them over the course of the week. Other hacks I use myself with the family, if I'm cooking evening meals, make double portions. So you've got your evening meal covered and you take the other portion for lunch or breakfast even the next day. And kind of just try and simplify it, but have those 2 slots, those 2 meal prep slots. Doesn't mean every meal has to be prepared, but if you're preparing your breakfasts for the week, you're covered. Takes out that decision fatigue, doesn't it? Ultimately, your breakfasts are covered, your lunches are covered. The only thing you then have to make a decision of is what am I going to eat for tea with the family that's also in line with my goals, but maybe a little bit of fun, a little bit of flexibility so the family don't feel like we're eating like monks all the time. And then coming on to what you were saying about Mars bars and craving sugar, well, a Mars bar is more fat than it is sugar. So are you craving sugar or are you just craving tasty food?
It's the combination of sugar and fat, man. That's what it is.
Yeah. So, can you trick yourself a little bit and have a protein bar rather than a Mars bar? Like they're probably around about the same calories. So, but you are getting the added benefit of a bit of protein with the protein bar. If not, and you still really want a Mars bar, fine. Just make room for it in your diet. Just make sure that not every day is a Mars bar day, or that you're chasing every meal with a Mars bar. But you can. Yeah. Most people can fit.
Mars bar chaser, I like it. It's my kind of diet.
Most people can fit in a Mars bar and still lose fat and hit their goals.
Well, how many calories is in a Mars bar? Like 200?
200, 250 tops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you like a Mars bar, just try and pull 100 calories out of like 2 of the meals. You'll barely notice.
But then for you in your situation, Don, you then get into the, like, if you're on 2,000 calories a day, 200 calories on a Mars bar, that's 10% of your intake. So then is it worth your while, or could you? For
me, where I am in prep at the moment, my calories are about 2,500. So for me, at the moment, no, a Mars bar's not worth it. I'd rather have 250 calories. So I'd rather have like 90 grams of cream of rice than to have a Mars bar or something that's going to fill me up longer. So, and I think what tends to happen is when you are tracking and you find like these like high calorie things, and then you find actually you get hungry because you've dropped out. 150 grams of white potato is going to be about 200 calories, something around there, between 100 and 150 grams. That's going to be a hell of a lot more filling than a Mars bar. You eat a Mars bar, you're going to be hungry again in 20 minutes. Whereas if you eat 150 grams of potato, like Dan said, he was full for like 4 or 5 hours, but one baked potato is about.
And sometimes it's a case of you'll scratch that itch, you'll have your Mars bar, and then does it lead you on then down the road of, I've had a Mars bar, so I'm going to have a couple of beers and a packet of crisps. Yeah. It kind of tips you over the edge. Whereas for some people, they can have the Mars bar and go, actually, I've scratched that itch. I'm fine now. I don't need anything else over the course of the day that is quote unquote unclean. But yeah, most people can fit a Mars bar in their diet. And if you want to take it to the extremes, we've seen people do the opposite of the supersize me diet. They've gone the downsize me diet, eat it, losing loads of weight, just eating McDonald's every day. And talk about ice cream earlier. Look up the guy who did abs and ice cream, and he ate 80% of his calories from ice cream every day for 100 days and still lost fat, lost weight, because he was controlling his calories and hitting sufficient amount of protein. So you can certainly, but then we're into that conversation we were having earlier about, are you just making things fit because you can, or do you truly want some ice cream, truly want a Mars bar? It's one of those.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to finish off.
Right. Well, been great to catch up with you today, Aled. I think I've followed you on social media. And I'm so bad at following the guests. Like, it's literally right before they get on, I'm just like, right, I better go and have a look at what this person does. Where can the guys?
They tell you 10 minutes before they come on.
Yeah, probably. Where can the guys find you if they want to come across and see some of your work? Like, where do you hang out?
I tend to mostly hang out on Facebook, but I do post on Instagram. So I've got my main Instagram page, which is just me at Aled Zach, but also the kind of business page at DNA Health and Fitness. But yeah, Facebook. I'll be honest, guys. Tonight has actually kind of reinvigorated me a bit around, because you can get, as you know, you can get really jaded with this industry, with people.
We were having this conversation before you came on, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah, like how many different ways can you tell people about certain myths and needing calories and stuff like that? But no, it's nice to seeing the questions in the group and seeing that there is still plenty of bullshit out there that needs to be quashed and addressed. So
yeah, man. Well, no, it's a pleasure. I've picked up some great tips as well. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely be putting those forward. But no, we've been to get you on for a little while, mate. Absolute pleasure we can finally get you on. And we'll be checking you out in terms of Facebook, Instagram. I'm Dan Fraser on Facebook, and then Barbers and Beans still on Instagram. I might be doing coffee at some point, but it was great to have you.
Been a pleasure being on, guys. So yeah, thank you for the invite.
No worries, dude. Right, enjoy the rest of the evening, guys.
Right, take care, dudes.
No worries. Bye.